its attraction to high caliber players aside, I will now prove that it is conclusively the faction best equipped to both conquer the game and objectives set forth in New World. Band together or die alone. That's what lead UX designer Dan Hanuber said of Amazon Games' upcoming MMORPG, New World. It's their first major release after the cancellation of their ill-fated Crucible, and after 2 betas and 2 delays, it's finally set to hit the scene on September 28th of this year. Now, as excitement builds to a fever pitch, the players need to know what to expect so they can hit the ground running. The journey begins as a player washes up on a shore of a dangerous world where fundamental laws of life and death don't apply. For thousands of years, the mysterious island of Eternum has been the source of fantastical legends, and now you've found it. But to survive against the otherworldly hordes of enemies, from the corrupted to the lost, the angry earth to the ancients, you mustn't go alone. The primary division of teamwork within New World comes in the form of companies, which can be established in one of 3 factions, defined by the game's website as organizations of like-minded players and non-player characters with their own motives and schemes for the island's future. In practice, factions shape the map through influence. Working within a territory owned by a player's chosen faction can grant them a variety of benefits, including more effective attacks, luckier looting results, as well as determining infrastructural developments and tax rates. Of course, should influence change, it'll prompt a massive 50 versus 50 siege battle to determine which faction will continue owning that territory, making this truly a fight for Eternum's future. But why does this matter? Game's not even out yet, right? Who cares which faction is which? Because what are you, planning to fail? Faction control will heavily influence your play, so it's important to choose wisely. Of course, you can change faction every 120 days, but only to a faction that doesn't hold the most territory, and it resets all your faction rank and tokens. Not to mention, quitting is for the weak. To get a full and impartial understanding of the issue at hand, I've actually kept my distance from playing the game, which may seem likely to hinder my understanding of this. But I had a secret weapon, a man on the inside, my CI, Guano Loco Lobo. Don't know what a CI is? Stands for Confidential Informant, which is why I didn't. His name isn't Guano Loco Lobo. Don't go to twitch.tv/Guano Loco Lobo, because you're not going to find him there. He's not going to be playing New World, because it doesn't exist. I made him up. Shit.
But the grouping system's kind of boring, in my opinion. We would join a group, but we wouldn't even really hang out in the same area. It was just so we'd have the group chat. And once we started a company, we could just use that. So there wasn't really any reason to group. Another thing that causes that to be a little frustrating are the factions. Everyone has to agree on the same faction, otherwise you can't really participate in PvP together, from my understanding, which is kind of lame, but I mean, I understand why it has to be that way. That makes grouping up with your friends and stuff even more challenging. It would be nice if there were different races or some other way to differentiate your character from others and give you a fringe benefit that isn't just the factions, because the factions are a little bland. There's only 3. Basically, you're just picking a color.
Of course, some CIs are idiots, and unfortunately, he couldn't be more wrong. The developers themselves describe factions as each having a set of principles and a unique motivation for wanting control of Eternum. So, it's only logical that before we can determine the best faction, we should first figure out which principles these factions stand for. Let's start with the Marauders, shall we? Or as my CI would say, the Green Team. The aforementioned article describes the Marauders as a ruthless military force bent on establishing a free nation. The noteworthy portion of this definition, I believe, is that it's a ruthless military force. Eternum is an island where nothing truly dies, so I have to ask, what good is a military? Marauder society is one in which anyone with the strength to do so can prosper and profit, which is fine as an ideal. But it can be easily abused, can it not? Therein lies the issue. Those stranded on Eternum have seemingly no way off. So much of the purpose of New World is to build just that, a new world, a new society. And in today's society, is it not clear that one built upon the credo of might makes right is doomed to collapse from within? So how about the so-called Yellow faction, the Covenant? As with any human society, two things are guaranteed to develop in Eternum: militant violence and religion. Given the extreme nature of the island itself, it stands to reason that similar extremes would develop in their religious groups, and the Covenant does not disappoint. This fanatical order has tasked itself to cleansing the land of heretics and defilers. Setting aside the fact that these self-important stuffed shirts are developing their beliefs with the logic of an ancient civilization attempting to explain lightning, I read an article online that recommended this to people who enjoy being holier than thou and smiting sinners. I rest my case. So we've got faith and we've got violence. Now it's time for the brain to accompany that brawn. The Syndicate. Syndicate is defined as a secret organization of boundless guile and intellect in search of forbidden knowledge to usher in the new age of enlightenment. Doesn't sound too bad, does it? If you don't mind, let me just read a few more statements that can describe people in the Syndicate. Your biggest weapon is your brain and your hunger for knowledge. You defy enemies by studying them and identifying their weak spot. Your mission is to explore the hidden secrets and mysteries of Eternum. It should be pretty clear by now that the Syndicate's the proper community for a fine detective like myself. But its attraction to high-caliber players aside, I will now prove that it is conclusively the faction best equipped to both conquer the game and objectives set forth in New World. Here's what you came for. Allow me to draw your attention to a quote from earlier in this study. For thousands of years, the mysterious island of Eternum has been the source of fantastical legends, and now you've found it. Now, this would obviously suggest that word of Eternum has been around for some time, with many fools believing it to be a myth. Now, let me draw your attention to another quote. This one from the 2001 classic Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Now, some of you may ask, why Atlantis? It's just a myth, isn't it? Pure fantasy. Well, that is where you'd be wrong. Curious. Those words were spoken by, of course, the heroic protagonist Milo. It was only with his unquenchable thirst for knowledge that they were able to go on that expedition to not only prove the existence of Atlantis, but also drive forward the plot of a wonderful and criminally overlooked film. Speaking of expeditions, while the massive PvP will be a fun initial draw to New World, the element that will likely allow it to go the distance is their expeditions. The game's answer to dungeons in traditional MMORPGs. Regarding these missions, the developers have said that they're intended to use teamwork to overcome challenges, solve puzzles, and battle monstrous bosses, in part to learn more about the source of corruption, expose the angry Earth's ulterior motives, reveal the deeper menace behind the loss, and delve into the secrets of the ancient guardians. So let's recap, shall we? Arguably the most important element of gameplay for a player's progression requires teamwork, thus reinforcing the importance of faction selection. The primary end goal of these expeditions is to learn, expose, reveal, and delve into the secrets of Eternum. And of these three world-shaping factions, only one is defined by its search for knowledge and its mission to uncover the hidden secrets of this island. And if that wasn't enough, purple is easily the best color of the three. Armed now with this research and resulting information, do you think it'll influence your faction choice going into New World?
After spending time in two different betas, I didn't think the factions really mattered because of the impending wipes, and now with the full game coming out, I still don't think it really matters. I always thought the Marauders were cool, and not just because I like the color green. I think that they are based entirely on pure violence is awesome and a great way for them to maintain power. As for the Covenant, don't really care about them one way or the other either, but I'm all for religious freedom, and burning heretics sounds cool. And then lastly, the Syndicate. Again, don't really have an opinion, but I also think Plague Doctor masks are kind of cool. Oh, and purple, yellow, and green are kind of all cool colors.
So there you have it. Another case closed. To dress for success for New World's contest, you better wear purple. But what other mysteries might arise in Eternum? See you next case.